And we are rocking and rolling, folks, on a Wednesday from the break on what is the hottest form of Bama football news, notes, and information in My Own Words, the podcast with yours truly, Stephen M. Smith. And we get into, every school in college football is known for something. Every school in college football is known for something, whether it's quarterbacks, whether it's wide receivers, linebackers, defensive linemen, defensive backs, you name it. In Alabama, Crimson Tide is known for having a little bit of everything. And never put it past ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports, to spark a debatable conversation. So ESPN dropped this graphic the other day in ranking the top 10 schools of all time, which battling for the title of wide receiver U. And Alabama on this list was ranked number 9. Almost half a college football playoff committee had Alabama ranked at 12/13 this past season. Now, there were 1 to 2 teams that were better than Alabama a season ago. I will admit that. There were 1 to 2 teams, but 12? No. So ESPN drops their wide receiver U list here. Alabama at number 9 out of 10. On the list, it had the teams above Alabama. We're looking at USC, Ohio State. Of course, Michigan was in there. LSU was in there. Oklahoma State were in there. Florida was in there. Bunch of teams ahead of Alabama. The only team that was beneath Alabama happened to be the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Now, I basically redid the list. So the only school that I feel like deserved number 1, deserved to be ahead of Alabama, was USC. USC with Juju Smith-Schuster, with Dwayne Jarrett, and with Mike Williams, that deserved to be number 1, just due to not only were these guys 1,000-yard targets, but also Mike Williams helped Carson Palmer get a Heisman Trophy in 2002, and Dwayne Jarrett helped Matt Leinart get a Heisman Trophy in 2004. Right behind USC, I would have Alabama. Alabama had the likes of Alabama had Jerry Jeudy, who was on that list. Jerry Jeudy, Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones, and Amari Cooper. All 4 of those guys had at least one 1,000-yard season, and all of those guys combined had 6 1,000-yard seasons. And they were able to get all of this done with different quarterbacks, whether they had, elite traits or not. These guys were able to get that done. Number 3, I had LSU. Number 4, I had Notre Dame. Number 5, I had Oklahoma. 6, I had Oklahoma State. 7, I had Michigan. 8, I had Florida State. 9, I had Ohio State. And 10, I had Florida. So just me here, when you look at this list of receivers for wide receiver U, all of these schools had great receivers. All of these schools had big-time guys. But for Alabama to be at number 9, not seeing that. When you had the only school I would have above the Crimson Tide is USC. Everybody else, when you look at Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, yes, they had great receivers, but both schools are in the Big 12. Big 12 not known for defense. The only team remotely in the Big 12 with the defense is TCU, and at times they get toe up from the flow up. And then when you look at Ohio State, great group of receivers with Michael Thomas, Ted Ginn, and David Boston, but only one of those guys had a 1,000-yard season. That was David Boston. When I look at Florida State, yes, combined, Rashad Green, Kelvin Benjamin, and Peter Warrick had 4 1,000-yard years combined. But once again, when you look at, of course, Alabama, we're looking at Biletnikoff Award winners in Amari Cooper and Jerry Jeudy. We're looking at a guy in, of course, Julio Jones, who made things happen with Greg McElroy. And we're looking at a guy like Calvin Ridley, who made things happen with the likes of Jacob Coker, 1,000-yard season, and even made some things happen with one Jalen Hurts. So despite ESPN having its list of wide receiver 1 being led by USC and Alabama at number 9, wasn't feeling the list. Was not feeling the list whatsoever. Had some great receivers. Michigan had a great group. LSU had a great group. Of course, it took for Zach Mettenberger to get to LSU, for Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry to both have 1,000-yard seasons. Michael Clayton never had a 1,000-yard season. For Florida, Percy Harvin, Antonio Callaway, and Andre Caldwell were all good, but they were all kind of all-purpose guys. They caught the football, ran the football out of the backfield at times, were great kick and punt returners, but just not solely receivers, not 1,000-yard guys. So ESPN wide receiver U with Alabama at number 9, kind of doing the same thing that the college football playoff committee did just this past season, put Alabama at 12/13. Were there other schools that were better? 1 to 2 maybe, but not everybody better than the Crimson Tide. Just my opinion right there. My opinion for this list, I would have Alabama at 2, right behind USC. Even though, USC had some Heisman winning quarterbacks, those receivers helped those quarterbacks get the Heisman. Alabama at number 2 on my end. But that's just my thoughts there, my opinions on the ESPN rankings there. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, you want to know the best, you want to have the best in news, notes, information, and content on your Crimson Tide. This is simple. This is easy to do. What you do, you download the Touchdown Alabama Magazine app, and you can get this from your iPhone App Store if you're rocking Team Apple, Google Play Store if you just so happen to have the Android phone. The podcast options, we got you covered here. If your audio listening pleasures just so happen to be iTunes or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn Radio, Overcast.fm, or iHeartRadio, we have you covered right here. If the good and gracious Lord sees fit, I will return on Friday, continuing the conversation that is Alabama football, and we will also have former Alabama wide receiver Marquise Mays in the building, or being featured on the show. So you definitely do not want to miss that. Marquise Mays coming on Friday. But gonna leave you here with my final 3 things. Husbands, love your wives. Wives, value, appreciate those husbands. Children, find ways to positively not be bored, but still get that homework done. Get those 3 hearty meals a day, those 3 great laughs a day. Protect yourself, protect the people around you. Until next time, folks, this is Stephen M. Smith, and this has been In My Own Words. Thank you for watching Touchdown Alabama Magazine's YouTube channel. To continue to get the best of the Alabama football content, subscribe here and turn on your notifications to stay connected with the hottest shows covering your Crimson Tide.